Hello and welcome to Michelle's Life with Angelina, episode number 9. In this episode, Michelle continues talking about the reincarnation of baby Angelina. She also talks a little bit about indigo and crystal children and what that means.
There were some questions, about whether it's, her, could it be a twin soul, what is the case? I did check with somebody else who's very psychic, intuitive, and they confirmed the accuracy of it. Interestingly, when I shared the story with Brandon, he seems to feel that she's already reincarnated through his daughter's new child, who has a different father, but that there's a keen recognition. So there's some questions about what's the case, and yet I got a confirmation from this other woman that in fact, no, this is really, her. So, whoever she is, she'll be extraordinary. It is quite a journey in terms of, just discovering different promptings that Spirit has for us and why things are showing up the way they're showing up. But as soon as I got that reframing on the soul of this child, and actually from both psychics that she's a crystal child, which many of the children coming in previously were indigo children,
Well,
now
what
they're
is
crystal children.
What is that?
And I haven't gotten the in-depth because there's really nobody that I know of that's teaching about the crystal children. There's people talking about the indigo children.
I've heard that term before.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure what it means.
So I'm still in a process or a path of discovery around what that actually means. But both of these, psychics actually confirm that, she's a crystal child, versus indigo. Because I think indigo is actually completely the path.
I had heard that the kids, Marcus and Malcolm, were indigo children. A friend of mine told me that.
Yeah.
He never gave me a clear definition.
Well, they really come in knowing exactly who they are and knowing why they're here. And we call it like sort of precociousness. They have a distinct knowing about it. And, as time goes on, obviously we agree as humans and through the conditioning of our society and, so forth, we agree to forget. It's a process of remembering. So, but recognizing that they're indigo children, like I recognize my niece and nephew, just very sharp. Know exactly who they are and why they're here. They're like little mini adults. And how could they not have had past lifetimes before? They just can't come in that wise out of the gate.
So what do you feel about her? You're known to be extremely spiritual and adept at,
There was another guy she was saying that,
for lack of a better word, the New Age philosophy. And some people think that's a little hokey.
realized that the show was an hour and a half.
Not to say that you care about what other people think,
Yeah.
but
He parked it at
you're sharing this yourself and Angel Harmony, Angelica,
Yeah.
with the
I didn't know
world.
there was no intermission.
So, I'm just going to say it bluntly. Some people might think you're a food cake.
No, I can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm sure folks of typical Judeo-Christian belief have certain feelings about what's so and what's not so. And I would say, generally speaking, most people, I can completely understand how a lot of people might feel that this is, crazy. And yet, the whole, if you look into more esoteric knowledge, the whole belief around reincarnation was stripped out of much of the teachings in Judeo-Christian belief. And, it's definitely reinforced in Hinduism, Buddhism, and so forth. So there's, a good part of the world that would believe, part of this, and then, the other half questions it. because they've been trained to think more ashes to ashes, dust to dust, and we only live once. And there's truth to that. We only live once as our reality as we are now, right? Who we were before, we don't know.
We were living once then.
Yeah, we were living, we were living once then, so it's hard to say what's the case. And I actually found a website called Cosmic Cradle. It's quite fascinating, and there's a number of quotes about, because that's when I was really in a deep discovery around when does conception occur. So of course when you're looking at birthing a child into the world, and I was looking at possible abortion, chemical abortion, that was one of the sites that I looked up because I really wanted to search my soul for when does conception occur. In typical, like I said, Judeo-Christian is the minute the sperm hits the egg. And then there's every other version in between that. And they even talk on there's certain quotes about when the soul enters into the child. And when I found some of the information on there regarding that the soul of the child can enter in any time after the second month, like in between the second and third or thereafter, that's what really gave me some strong feelings about, wow, that night that occurred, that I thought I was really channeling her, that was actually when her soul entered into my being, because it was quite palpable and unforgettable, and the confirmation that I had with going into the office with the woman, recognizing that there was a little girl traveling, was auspicious. Now, had either of us known that I was pregnant at the time, there would be a whole different conversation taking place. But given that I didn't know, nor did she, it evoked a totally different, context or conversation. So, which I think has way more to do with the fact that, the soul is there, aside from just the matter of, her being. And obviously, her sex was already determined at that point, so quite interesting that came about. So I realized it's testing all my beliefs, my old outdated belief systems and my new belief systems around all different levels of this reality, around the soul of the child. Obviously there's still some remaining questions. Did I ever suspect I would go back and share it with the father, and here he not only believes in reincarnation, but believes that she's already reincarnated. Wow, isn't that interesting? Okay. So, it sort of evokes some different kinds of feelings about, what do we choose to project what we feel we want to project into the reality of another? Maybe he wants to think that that's her, and the other kids want to think that that's her because the loss of her was so devastating. They would never think that some family member outside of the context of their connections would give birth to the soul, of her being, right? That's just doesn't. So I'm not making them wrong. I'm not saying I'm right. Either way, it's all a question. But when I did talk to one psychic, and she said, no, I think the other one is more of a projection, and that this is really her. And, there's a reason that it's angel harmony as opposed to harmony angel. So who knows? All levels of reality are quite an enigma, right? But there's, it's evoked a lot of questions as opposed to answers, which I feel like will be answered in time when she comes in.
See all of the episodes of Michelle's Life with Angelina at www.lovebabygifts.com/blog. And also there, for a limited time, you can claim your free book, How to Tell Stories to Children with Stories to Tell, and read articles on baby-related topics. See you there.